Hey, Sheriff.
Well, good afternoon. Walton County Sheriff Mike Adkinson, along with our public information guru extraordinaire, Ms. Corey DeBritnia, and this is the Sheriff Live. So, if you're a regular viewer or if you're just joining us, let me give you the highlight. This is Walton County, Florida, not Walton County, Georgia. We're in the panhandle of Florida. We run from the Alabama line to the coast, and we're about halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee. And so this is what we try and do like twice a month to report to my bosses, the citizens of Walton County. And we talk about, what's going on in the county, but also we try to answer your questions. If you have something that is bigger than Walton County, we'll certainly try and touch on that too. We always caveat with, I don't promise to know the answer. I promise to get an answer. So sometimes we're wrong. I'm wrong quite frequently, generally 2 or 3 times before lunch. And so we try to do the best we can to get you the right answer. And, it's funny, Corey, because we talk about this a lot, that if you look at Florida statute books, they're like this wide if you had the books on the table. And there's Florida Administrative Code, and then there's county ordinances, and there's federal stuff.
And then there's budget.
And then there's budget, and there's all kind of stuff. And it's funny because people go, what do you mean you don't know Chapter 2, Section X of ZYZZZX2? Sometimes I don't know. I don't know it all. But we do try and look and try and apply some common sense into what we're doing. And guess what? It is hot right now, and it is busy here in Walton County, which are all good things. So we're pleased to be back. We'll answer any questions you have. Fire them up. I don't see the questions. They go to Corey. She tries to read them and hit us with them and with these hard-hitting questions and try and move forward. We have had a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, this is the busy time of year. And, I mentioned the heat, but I think it's important to note that's a real challenge for our staff, whether they're in fire rescue or deputies on patrol right now or grounds crews at our out of our jail work squads. It's really hot, and so we have to be careful with our folks, and we're doing our best to keep them hydrated and protected. But I think anybody out there knows this is a hot time to be outside working for sure. So
yes, that is our alert that we are live on the air. So. I was talking to somebody the other day who's lived in Walton County a long time, and we were talking about how hot it's been, and they couldn't remember it ever really feeling this hot.
I don't know, man. It's definitely hot, and it's running multiple days in a row here. And all joking aside, for your animals, you have to be careful. You have to get them inside. You have to, And I was talking to somebody, a roofer, the other day, and they were talking about they had to go and work early and then take a break and then come back and do it in the afternoon. And somebody said, "Why aren't you working all day?" Well, why don't you climb up and do your own roof then? Because it's hot. Mm-hmm. I think everybody that works outside knows right now this is a tough time. So we're just trying to be cautious and protect. Our folks have that external gear. Whether it's again a fire rescue squad in turnout gear, or it's a deputy in a ballistic vest and an extra 35 pounds worth of equipment on them. It's really hot for sure.
Yeah. So. And our work crews out of the jail are doing a lot of work too, with the inmate crews, and they take care of more than 30 properties around the county. Yeah. And they're getting work done. We actually got a compliment about a work crew the other day.
And folks, they're farming. If you haven't seen our farming operation, we run a pretty big. We produce tons and tons of produce every year, which. It's kind of a two-part thing. One, it drives the cost down at the jail, right? But it also is good for the soul. There's something about putting your hands in the dirt and growing things that I think is good for everybody, and it's it's a great resource for the county.
Yeah, and then they get to eat what they grow, which is cool.
Absolutely.
So Steve Sunday says he's watching. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Speaking of Steve Sunday, he is our cold case investigator. Yeah. And this week, I believe it was yesterday to be exact, marks the disappearance of Kimberly Raymer.
Yeah, that obviously that's a case that I think so many of our viewers are going to be familiar with, that originated out of Alabama and with a lot of Walton County ties. We've never let that go. We continue to try and work it. We continue to try to follow up. What I'll say, what I've always said about it, there are people walking around in Walton County today that know the answer. It's just no more complex than that. The answer, I think, resides in Walton County, and we're hopeful that, for her mother and her family that they deserve this. We would like to see it brought to resolution, and any opportunity we get to do that, we're gonna try and do it.
Yeah. Couldn't be a nicer woman either. Sure. Sue is just like the nicest woman. So we posted about Kim's case right below this, and you can watch the video we did with her mom, and you can brush up on the facts of the case and see if you can help. Alicia Schnitzer says, hi, friends. And then Deborah Lee McCormick says, hello.
Awesome.
Ellen says, thank you for all you do. Chastity, at what point would the sheriff's office step in to help with drug problems in Defuniak Spring city limit? Our city police is doing a fantastic job, but they can only do so much by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we always try and partner and work with the city. Every opportunity we get, we'll certainly do that. If the chief has something specific area that we can, we're more than willing to try and do that. We've, our own vice unit has spent quite a bit of time in the last really 2 years concentrating on long-term, really kind of bulk narcotics cells, for lack of a better way of putting it, and we've had some pretty good results over that. But the more people we work with, the better it is. I mean, that's absolutely true, and certainly anytime the city asks for help, we're there to try and help them.
Yeah. Alicia says, we've been here 4 years now, and this is the hottest summer we have experienced. It's warm. Ellen Harrison, is there any needed service that our beaches don't have?
Is there any needed service that our beaches don't? I think there are two things that immediately jump out, and I think Chief Crawford and those folks at South Walton would agree with us. I would like to see lifeguards extended. I think the more we can do that, the better it is. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of expanding the Beach Ambassador program significantly, and just quite frankly, we're talking with the BCC, the Board of County Commissioners, about that now, about trying to get that Beach Ambassador program back up, and so I think those two things immediately can provide some assistance.
And when you say extended, do you mean the lifeguard season extended, or just that program expanded?
All the above. All the above. I think it's a great program. I think expanding it makes sense. I think more people that are lifeguards makes sense to be a force multiplier. I think the more people we have that can help warn people about flags, I think the better it is. And really even the heat. We always talk about drowning, which is obviously a significant incident, but you also have people that get dehydrated out on that beach, get burned really badly, and I know we kind of tend to talk about that as in a joking manner, but it can be very serious as well. So I think an expansion of the Beach Ambassador program would be a good thing.
Yeah. And speaking of lifeguards and beach flags and your own beach unit, 4 of them just graduated EMT school. So not only are they sworn deputies and USLA lifeguards, now they're certified EMTs.
Absolutely. That's not an easy course. That's a pretty tough course, and we were glad to see our folks step up and get that done. So they're carrying multiple certifications, and that's again, that's about saving lives and helping people. So super proud of those folks.
Yeah. Luann Bethia, how is the deputy whose vehicle was struck by lightning?
He's actually okay. Got lucky. That's not something that you see every day. That's I can think of twice in my life I've ever actually heard of that, and so it is very rare. Did total the vehicle, but the deputy's okay, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Kenneth Vale is a really good sport.
Church is what he better be.
He's a really good sport, and he was really thankful for everybody reaching out, just checking on him. Terry Pilch, how many of the 1,100 private beach homeowners settled? I saw 450, and then I saw 36 in the press. Also, are umbrellas allowed in the 20-foot zone? I've seen news articles that say no umbrellas, but my interpretation of the settlement text is that they are allowed, just not south of the mean high tide water line.
Okay, so that's like four different things, and I'm gonna try. Yes. Who was that? Terry
Pilch.
Pilch or Pilcher?
It just says Pilch. Okay. Pilch.
So here's kind of the short version is, within 90 days of this settlement being agreed, we have to come up with a policy. As my understanding is that they are trying to get other properties that are going to be involved in this. Right now, it is definitely less than 30 or 40 properties. I mean, so there's only a handful of properties. I haven't seen the final list, so I don't know the counties putting them together. They're going to give it to us. There may be as many as 450 to 500 when they're done, but I don't know the answer to that, so I don't want to speak and be wrong about it. But officially now, there's not that many. The second part of that question had to do with
umbrellas.
The short version of that is no umbrellas. In the customary use zone, there's no umbrellas or south. But again, depending on how many properties we're talking about, that may or may not even be relevant. That does not affect the private property owners. They can have umbrellas. So that's the short version of it. I know it's complicated. We're going to hold a town hall meeting in the next couple of weeks as we get all the facts together, and then we're just kind of walk through this, because I wish I could tell you it was one set of rules for everybody, but it's just not. It's not going to be one set of rules, and so that makes it very, very difficult for us. But we're going to be as clear as we can, and we're going to come up with ways to help keep you guys educated about what's going on. But the short version is no umbrellas. I mean, that's the really, yeah, I get it. That's the problem when attorneys read things and regular people read things, and the way maybe Terry and I read it's not the way the attorneys read it, but they've been very explicit about that.
Yeah. And by the way, we didn't have a say in that settlement, so it doesn't matter if we like it or not.
Liking's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Stephanie Jeffries. Can a do not enter sign be put back up at the turn lane in front of the Dollar General on Highway 98 in Santa Rosa Beach due to the fact that there was almost a head-on collision there? I'm not sure if
down. So that must be.
I wonder why DOT took it.
I don't know. So here's what we'll do. We'll follow up with an email to them and find out why they took it down, because it's actually a state signage issue. So yeah, we can absolutely follow up with that and send an email. We try and do that when we get off the air. If it's not directly us answering it, we'll try and send it to somebody and see if we can get an answer.
Yeah. From our YouTube viewers, Susie Green says, "Thank you for being here. Our community appreciates the hard work you do. I was wondering if you had an update on customary use. The Blue Mountain Beach properties will be reviewed in court in a month."
Yeah. So again, I think I got to be careful. Thank you. I just had an emergency relief come in. It's going to be a whole different show now, folks. Yeah. So the short version is I don't want to speak to something that's not finalized. Yeah, I need to hold on until the county tells me exactly what properties we're talking about. I just don't know at this point. I know that sounds crazy when you say I don't know, but trust me, I don't know. Quite frankly, I'm not sure who does from that standpoint, except the attorneys that are actually working it. Blue Mountain's a whole different set of issues there. So we're going to wait and see. And as soon as they give it to me, that's actually what we're holding on with our town hall meeting is I don't want to hold a town hall meeting and not have a pretty thought out set of policies, A and B, and not know what properties. So that's going to cause even more confusion. So that's actually our hold up now, is to try and get as solid as we can be on what the facts are. Yeah. But I have to tell you, some of the we saw this when we put out a video last week, and I get people's passion, I think, but not to be just to the point, I guess, is we don't, Corey and I talked about this, we don't get any say in this. This is not what I like. And we get a lot of people say, well, I know it's X, and they're saying things that are absolutely wrong. They're absolutely wrong. And they're telling people, and people going behind them go, oh, yeah, that's right. And that's not right. So, I think it's important to understand what our opinion is as opposed to what the actual law is. And, that's the other thing. We had a lot of people say, well, taxpayers' dollars were used to renourish those beaches. So just to be 100% clear with you, there was never been any proof provided that taxpayer dollars were used east of Topsail. That's what the rub is. So we'd have hundreds of people email say, well, I know taxpayer dollars were used to renourish beaches. So prove it, because if you could prove it, that would make a huge, huge difference. It wasn't proved. That was part of the issue in that. West of Topsail, from Topsail going west, was, and that's why that property is considered renourished property and open to the public. So it's not a matter of me agreeing or not agreeing. I can just tell you that we're hearing a lot of people are saying things that are not factually accurate, and they're getting so frustrated and mad. So for me, it's just really important to be accurate when I say something, even if it's not popular, but to make sure what I tell you is accurate. And so hopefully in the next, again, we're probably about 30 days out, I would say, from having that town hall meeting and then wrapping up our policy. We had 90 days from, I think the judge gave us 90 days to help try and develop some policies. I had a meeting with the state's attorney's office in Pensacola one day last week, and really a thoughtful meeting with them. And then our chief state's attorney here, Josh Mitchell, we're going to all meet together and just make sure we're on the same page and we understand this.
Yeah. It's a very complicated issue, and one that a deputy, who goes to law enforcement academy, you're not taught customary use and how to read deed lines and all of that.
Customary use may be the least of this issue when it's done.
Yeah.
When it's done, customary use may affect this much out of all of this. So we just don't know that yet.
Yeah. David Binder has a question for you. He says, why does a good Seminole keep wearing orange? I don't know the answer to that, David. I'd like to know because I'm a Seminole.
Yeah, so the commissioner's calling me out on that. I do, in fact, send checks to Florida State University, so I'm with you on that.
I'm still paying for my education.
Yeah, I'm still paying for that.
Gail.
I think Corey and I both are. I think we're both paid student loans.
Gail Mower, is the beach ambassador a volunteer?
So, again, the TDC has a couple of, I think they're like 2 beach ambassadors. The beach ambassadors that under our thought process, the sheriff's office thought process is not going to be a volunteer. There'll be some volunteers, but really what we're going to do is take the community service officers like you see on Highway 98 now in our community service vehicles.
Like Leah, who is a saint.
Like Leah Snaith and Robert Adams. You'll see those. We're gonna make those. We need a number of full-time positions on the beach doing that. There's just too much involved in this. Then we're going to think that we can do some seasonal. We would still have the volunteers, but I'm not going to put a volunteer down in the middle of customary use and beach property rights issues. That's not fair to a volunteer. But I would love to have volunteers outside of that in the beach ambassador program. Again, that's assuming I end up managing that. And it's important to understand. I'll get paid one more penny for taking on that. This is just something we're just going to have to do. Either we're going to do it, or we're going to have to clean up behind other people. And it's just better for us to try and solve this problem.
Yeah. Haley Spires, I know several drug suppliers in the county outside of the city limits. How aware is the sheriff's office of this issue, and what is the plan on addressing this matter?
So I have to tell you, we have a list probably as long as my arm of people that I'm going to use the air quotes, know from our standpoint, they're involved in narcotics issue. You've got to remember, one thing is not what we know, it's what we can prove. And you have to build cases. You can't just kick in a door because, hey, I saw somebody come and go in all hours of the night. We've been pretty successful, right? We've been pretty successful with our drug cases, but we're still not putting a dent in a lot of it, right? So we try to triage, to decide who and when, what cases get the most amount of time. You only have a handful of people that work full time on vice narcotics, so we try and get the most bite, if you will, for the number of personnel we have. What I would say to you is send us the address, because a lot of addresses we're working on, or we've been working on, or we have in files. We just can't advertise that, obviously, for multiple reasons. But I'd like to hear what you know, and like to know where you're talking about. So if you can send it anonymous. I don't mind. But try and be as factual as you can. Provide as much detail as you can. Not, I know they're a drug dealer. I know people are coming all hours an hour, and it's obvious. You need a little bit more to it than that, right? Because remember, I can't go kick the door down just because that it appears to be obvious. There's a Fourth Amendment, which has to do with search and seizure. Your constitutional prohibition against me coming kicking in the door. So it's there for a reason. But we'd love to hear what you got. We'd love to hear what you know.
Take a minute to explain to people, and we kind of did this with Operation Mr. Clean and some of those other operations where, just because you're not seeing drug arrests, and which, by the way, if you look at our inmates, we are making drug arrests pretty much every day, but it takes a long time to build these cases, and it's not. We're talking years to build cases.
So Freeport's a really interesting point, because Mr. Clean, we arrested, I think, 38 people for the large scale traffic of methamphetamine and heroin. Right, multiple federal indictments. I think 20 some of them went to federal prison. But it was within 4 months somebody called, so you don't do anything in Freeport. Why aren't you doing something in Freeport? So that's how difficult it is, right? I have to tell you, a lady reached out to me last week and gave us some pretty good information on some places that we're looking at now in that general area. So we always want to hear your information. We're not going to necessarily call you back and go, hey, you're right, we're working on this, because we can't do that. Obviously, there's some risk involved with it. Yeah. But we definitely want to hear what you got and where you're at, and what you think is going on. What do you know?
Beth Niblett, she works over at the jail for you. Mm-hmm. She says, hi Beth, we need to do lunch. Kayla Bertram, When did SROs stop directing traffic before and after school at Mossy Head? It's awful, and it's a miracle a wreck hasn't happened yet.
No, they need to. I mean, we're only in like the third day of school now, right? So they haven't stopped. We might have had somebody tied up. We might have had a shortage with somebody going out assisting, but we're not in the business of stopping that. We try and get people out there wherever we can. A lot of that has to do with if there's a road. So there's an SRD assigned to the school, and they're going to be working directing traffic. But we also have to pull somebody else in to try and direct traffic. So it's possible that maybe these 2 days somebody was out, but we'll follow up and check on it. We're not stopping doing that, I guess is the short way of saying that.
Chris May Bishop says, watching, hello.
Hello.
Andrea Breeze, are you aware the Beach Ambassador program is alive? Are you wanting to add an additional Beach Ambassador program under the sheriff, or are you transferring the current program?
So, and this is why I got to be careful when I say these kind of things, right? So the short answer is add. Yeah, I think the Beach Ambassador program is a great idea, great concept, but I think it needs to be expanded. And then for the people that I'm using that term Beach Ambassador, what I mean by that is that concept of customer service, dealing with kind of bifurcating it. We're dealing with customary use private property issues down on the beach. That's going to take full-time employees. That is a full-time employee. Mm-hmm. And then people that maybe seasonally can help and do things other than deal with private property, beach issues, health, public safety
like
issues.
Educate people on beach flags and sea turtles.
So I'm using that as an all-encompassing term. Now, where it ends up, whether the TDC does that, whether we end up doing that, whether code enforcement ends up doing that, that remains to be seen. That's, the Board of County Commissioners asked the county administrator to work with us to try and see if we could develop something that makes sense. What I'm saying is I like the model of the Beach Ambassador program. I think that's a good model. It just needs to be expanded.
Sure.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Obi Oberman, the turn lanes heading north to south and south to north are pretty tough at Watersound Parkway and 98. Is there anything you guys are considering changing at this time? Thanks.
Let me think about it. Is that the private road through Camp Creek? I don't know the answer to that, Obi. So the short version of that,
Watersound Parkway at 98. Turn lanes heading north to south or south to north.
Okay. I don't know. To my knowledge, I haven't heard them discuss it. I actually think those are private roads. I think both those are actually private roads. But we can't ask. We'll send some notifications over to those folks and ask them.
Yeah,
I don't think those have been turned over.
Yeah, and Florida Department of Transportation controls 98, but I don't know. I don't know if those turn lanes heading north on Watersound Parkway.
I'm almost positive they're actually private, so we need to ask. We can ask the developer about that. They are private, so.
Yeah. Stephen Menchie. Stephen actually reached out to me, and we had some good interaction. First, thanks for all you do and your staff does to keep us safe. Please consider more traffic enforcement on the west end of 30A, late night, early mornings. Many, not all vehicles are traveling at high speeds. The specific areas are from the intersection of 98 and 30A to beyond Stinky's restaurant.
The west end, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Towards Okaloosa.
Sorry, I have to visual when they're talking about it. I have to kind of shut my eyes and visualize what we just said. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sky Shockey says, I need Starbucks now. We're very sorry.
Ditto.
And then Bobby and Teresa Shaw, what happens to the private properties when a bad storm comes and sand is removed? Will the state be responsible for helping sand restoration?
Right, so I'm going to try and not get in trouble and be a property rights lawyer, but here is the sheriff non-attorney answer to that. When it's happened in the past, they have elected not to get sand from renourishment. That's the short version. Florida law says at this point that if you elect to take sand from the government, for lack of a better way of putting it, renourished from the government, that becomes sovereign to the state of Florida, and the property that is added is then open to use the public. It doesn't take away from the private property, but it adds to the public. That's why Bay County, you never hear Bay County having these problems, and a lot of Okaloosa County doesn't have this problem.
Like Cape Sandblast.
Because all those have been renourished, so there's beach for the public. So if the short answer to your question, Mr. Shaw, is if under existing Florida law, And that's why west of Topsail, we never have a problem west of Topsail, because west of Topsail elected to take the sand.
Nourished.
East of Topsail, there was no agreement, so it has not been nourished. But if it was renourished, that should be open to the public.
Yeah.
Which is why, by the way, if they had been able to prove that, that would have been a big issue. Yeah.
Gail is asking, how would one become a beach ambassador?
So again, Gail, I don't want to get too far out over my skis because I'm not there yet. We haven't developed that right now.
Have you ever skied?
No, I've water skied, believe it or not.
Sorry, I had to ask that.
I didn't see snow till I was 30 years old. I am a true Florida boy. So, Gail, I don't want to advise you because I don't know exactly what TDC is doing with it. I know being air quotes, if the sheriff's office moves into that, we start doing that, and we're making plans to make a proposal to do that. We'll do it through the sheriff's office website. So, but right now we're not quite there yet. We're working on it, and the board has to decide if that's what they want to do. We have to. If not, it's going to be code enforcement, and I think that's what they're trying to work out. So it's going to be us or code enforcement, right? That's the short version of that.
Deborah Lee McCormick says, "Go Knowles." Mike Nessett. This is a follow up from your last. You said if a beachfront property owner had security guards harassing locals and tourists on property they do not own, it would be considered battery, and the guard and beachfront owner and HOA could be held liable for this. I contacted Lieutenant Jordan about this issue, which is happening at the Lake Causeway walkover just west of Vizcaya, and was told that there was nothing that he could do because he was not a surveyor. Code enforcement uses the GIS mapping, and they have noted that these owners do not own mean high water line, but they cannot do anything because the sheriff's office handles issues of trespassing. So how can we get the sheriff's office to put up to stop this harassment?
So that's like multiple things going on with that, right? So I got to kind of walk through this. The GIS is not through yet. So what we have been told is the county was GIS in the entire coastline, for lack of a better way of putting it. And what I said, he's got part of that right, which is, I didn't say necessarily harassment, but if you touch somebody or if you attempt to move them off that property, we'll use the term harassment. That's not a little bit different than the legal term. Yes, you had better be right. You had better be right, because if it's not your property, you are committing a battery. If you touch someone. If you touch someone, you're committing a criminal battery, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the question is whether or not that security guard can prove they have their survey, for lack of a better way. In the past, that was the main issue, is the inability to prove where that line, and people argue back and forth. That particular place that they're talking about, they brought a survey to the sheriff's office. We have not reviewed their survey yet because we're waiting on the county to finish all the GIS to be accurate. I can tell you now, some of these things are about to be in conflict. Absolutely about to be in conflict. In other words, I think my property goes to here and it really doesn't. And then somebody else says, I think it does. We're going to go with what the GIS says on that. That's the bottom line. I'm not sure how the code enforcement gave you any advice on the mean high tide water line, because they don't deal with that at all. So that's a totally different issue, right? And that's separate from customary use. So the short version, I'm going to go back to this, is we need to see, we'll see what the GIS and that survey says. And unfortunately, we're about to become surveyors. That's the short version of this, is we're about to make decisions on this. That's why I had to wait and talk to the state's attorney's office to try and figure out exactly how we're going to handle this. Hopefully, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to have this done. And we're going to give this blanket admonition and say, look, if you, and I'm saying security guard for the sake of argument right now, if the security guard says, get off this piece of property, and they put their hands on you, or they tell you to leave, you don't leave, they take a risk upon themselves, right? They take a risk upon themselves. Here's the caveat to that. If you don't leave and it is their property, you take a risk of trespassing, right? So we're developing how we're going to handle this from a sheriff's office standpoint. And we've got some ideas. I think, in speaking to Ms. Madden, she agreed with us. I think everything right now, from the sheriff's office standpoint, I think we understand where we're going. We are waiting for this official GIS and the official policy to be done so that we don't start doing something at the location he's talking about and doing something else somewhere else. But we're going to talk to all these security companies and give this blanket warning and say, look, you need to understand the liability, both civil, because in this case, the beachgoer could potentially sue you, and then as well as potentially criminal, because both of those things exist. But we're talking about 3 different things. One's private property, one's mean high tide water line. That is, and one is customary use. They are different things, and we tend to use these words interchangeably, and we don't like a lot of it. So we don't like it, so we don't want to hear this part of it. So without knowing the specifics of that place, and go ahead and email that in, give me the specifics of where you're talking about, and we'll go back over it and look at it. But we're about to have very definitive action taken in these matters. That's kind of I don't know, that's not the short version because it's long and it's convoluted.
Yeah, and Mike, we wish we had a better answer.
Yeah,
but unfortunately, right now,
but we're about to. Whether it's the answer people want, depending on what side of this fence you come down on, may not be the answer people want, but we're about to have an answer.
Yeah. Heather Generet, can you put a deputy at Business 331 and US 331 intersection in the mornings? It's such a dangerous intersection.
Yeah, we try to do that when we can. There is a light coming there. I will tell you, there is a light. I know DOT is working on that. There is supposed to be a light there. This is really just a function right now with school back in. We're trying to get deputies around schools as much as we can as well, too, to slow that speed, slow that area down. But where we can, we try and do that.
Yeah. And you did see a lot of that when we,
Yeah, yes, right, correct. We've done that before. Out there. We're just not really in a position to do it right this second.
Yeah. John Nash, I cringe every time I see an LSV on 98. Could the county put up signs at the 45-mile-an-hour signs leading to 98 from 395, 393, and other streets? I, for one, don't want to see a tragedy.
I do too. You know what? I'm kind of like Mr. Nash about this, but I don't think a sign's going to get it. If you need a sign to tell you it's a dumb idea to get on 98, I'm not sure you can read. I mean, there is something fundamentally wrong if you drive a vehicle on Highway 98, a golf cart, a low-speed vehicle or golf cart. So I don't know. I guess, Mr. Nash, what I'm saying is I'm not disagreeing. We can put those signs up. We have them actually on many of the roadways. But seriously, somebody needs to tell you not to drive a golf cart or a low-speed vehicle on a U.S. highway? You're about 3 shades of an idiot if you're doing that. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I got one the other day on 98 close to 283, and I'm shocked at the arrogance involved in it, and so... Yeah, we're getting them. We're towing them left and right. We're towing them left and right down there.
I know.
To that extent, hundreds of them. Hundreds of them we've stopped.
And Sergeant Bennett pulled over one at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
With 4 juveniles in it.
Absolutely.
None of which were wearing seatbelts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they knew that they weren't supposed to be on Highway 98.
I'm a huge advocate for seatbelts. But seatbelts probably not going to do you good on Highway 98.
And not in a low-speed vehicle.
60 miles an hour in a golf cart or a low-speed vehicle.
And you are absolutely right. We don't want to see a tragedy either. It's
hard not to be frustrated with people.
Oh,
it's hard
100%,
not to be frustrated with people.
100%. Barbara Morano, when are you planning to share the enforcement of the various beach agreements, and when will the meeting be held?
We actually have said that a couple of times. We are finalizing these policies. And with the state attorney, the board, and all that in now, that's going on every day. We're working on trying to get the nuances together. We're going to hold a town hall meeting here at the South Walton substation.
Not South Walton High School.
No, not South Walton High School, because we're going to do it at the substation, and then we'll do it live like this so people can join in. But here's what I'm going to say about that. If you're coming to tell me you hate it and this is stupid and the beaches should always be public, or you think they should all be private property, right? That's not productive for us. We don't get an opinion. I don't get to decide what I like. This is about how we are going to move forward as a county and as an organization with policies that make sense for our residents, our visitors, our property owners, so that you know what we're going to do. So in other words, this is not rah, get behind me, I'm for private property and we all cheer. Or I'm for customary use and let's all cheer and go, yeah. That's not what this is about. That should have been done before we got here. Now this is a sheriff's office issue that we have to figure out how to work with the people. So we're going to ask people to come to town hall. They're going to be thoughtful and submit questions about how can we do this better? How can we be good partners? And so
how can we educate people so they know what to expect?
Absolutely. Not what I like, because I don't get to do what I like. That's a whole different animal, right? But we're hope to be done. We hope to have the fleet of attorneys that are going to review this. All of them making $500 an hour, telling us what we should be doing. Hopefully, we're going to be done in the next 2 weeks. And I joke about that, but our attorney, the sheriff's office attorney, has been on this and working between the county's attorney, private property's attorney, everybody involved with this, so that what we do is appropriate, it's legal, and it's fair. Now we're ready to try and get citizens' input. I hope that is going to be in the next. I think we're shooting for the second week in September.
Yeah.
But I really, really need to know how many properties are going to be in customary use. That's one of the biggest problems right now. I don't even know how many properties that affects. And the county, go back to what I said to the other gentleman about the GIS, the county has to give us that GIS map of what's private property, what's public property, what's customary use property, what are easements. So we got to have that before we can do anything.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I wish it was. I wish it was so simple. I wish it was more simple because it is. I feel like I'm selling snake oil when I talk about this stuff, because it is to tell people there are going to be 3 and 4 different sets of rules on the beach. It frustrates me professionally, but it's got to be done. I mean, I don't have any choice in the matter.
Well, and I'm biased, but I really feel bad for the deputies who have to now be GIS professionals and know, where private property ends and how to read a survey. I mean, that's
well, and people are so passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in this county, I can tell you in the northern end, we've had property, and south end, we have property line disputes that, have ended up in shootings. I mean, people are very passionate about where they think their property line is. You add to that with the belief that you don't own the beach or you can't restrict the beach. So strong feelings, passionate feelings all across the board. We just don't get the luxury of telling you what our feelings are about it. So we have to be right. And that's what's important.
Yeah. Brees and Lowry, why is an already convicted felon caught shooting a firearm in an occupied dwelling released on a $10,000 bond? What she's talking about is, so we've actually had a couple of these lately. The one she's talking about is on Punch Bowl Road. Your District 1 deputies, Carla Odell and Connor Gunn, Lieutenant Pittman made that arrest.
Right.
He was arrested for shooting into an occupied dwelling with a woman and her children.
Correct.
And he was given a $10,000 bond. So
the bonds, just kind of the way this works, is bonds are set by judges. I do not do bond. I don't do. I think the 15 years I've been in office, I've done maybe one signature bond, and it sure wasn't for that. We don't do. The sheriff's office does not set bonds. We have no say in the setting of bonds. That is determined by a court of competent jurisdiction, and they look at different things, and they have rules about what their bonds can be. But I have absolutely no say whatsoever in a bond.
And can you?
Because we get that a lot. People call and they rant and rave about why I let someone out, and that's not something I have control over.
Where do you think that can you set a misdemeanor bond schedule?
I'm not going to.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to do that because the judges have a bond schedule.
Okay.
And for Walton County, kind of interesting. If you're arrested in Okaloosa County, the sheriff's office in different places they have a bond schedule for felonies. A lot of felonies are bonded. But in Walton County, you have to see a judge to get a bond. Mm-hmm. So every one of these people, when you hear them bonded, they went to see a judge. If the judge did not preset it, particularly felonies, they go to see a judge. By the way, it's not like that in every other county around here. So I know everybody likes to get aggravated with the judges, but I have to tell you, if you go to Okaloosa County, you're going to bond out for pretty much anything short of double murder. If you're in Leon County, you're going to bond out that night. You get a bond. Mm-hmm. It's not like that in Walton County. In Walton County, you're going to stay overnight and see a judge. So a judge will see you in person to make that decision, which is a little bit different. It's not done the same in every county.
Yeah, we should do a podcast on that.
Boy, that's a that's a good. That would be actually a good one to do
on just like bonds and like what
and how that works.
And just try to explain it to people. Yeah. Obi said thanks. Shelly Myers. Okay. Does the sheriff's office set the fine for entering the water during double red flags? No. If so, can we increase it? If it's not you, who should we ask? Thanks for everything you do to keep us safe.
It's actually the Board of County Commissioners. They set fines. I don't set fines.
$500.
Yeah, it's $500. So it's a pretty sporty fine. Mm-hmm. No, the sheriffs can't set fines because I enforce fines, right? So you don't want me collecting money to make money for state conference. It's the same reason we don't get money off tickets. Like everybody thinks, that people fund their They're tickets. So I told somebody it's like a $90 million budget. We don't, the $50,000 in traffic tickets, trust me, does not make a difference, right? So anyway, that's set by the board. That's set by the Board of County Commissioners.
So Shelley, if you want it increased,
they just did. They increased it last year to 500. It went from 100 to 500.
Yeah,
it went from 100 to 500.
Encourage you to go to a Board of County Commission meeting and voice that.
I don't know that you'll ever get above 500. Is really way in the upper limit, but she may not be aware that was recently done.
Yeah.
I think it was done last summer.
Robert Fouché.
Okay.
Why are you restricting 30A parking so much? There are too many people and too few beach access points.
Preach on. Why are you restricting? Trust me when I tell you, I'm not restricting. I don't have any say on where the parking, who determines where the parking's at. That is actually the Board of County Commissioners, and the county administrator specifically can designate what area is permitted with parking. Okay. They have to decide whether or not they allow it. Walton County is actually one of the few counties around that allows parking in the right of way in a lot of places. You don't see that in a lot of it. So that's probably some of it too. I 100% agree with you. You should not invite millions of people down here to visit and not have appropriate parking for you. They should be building parking decks. They should be building parking spaces. It's not fair to expand. We say come, and we're taking away parking spaces. So I don't disagree with you. I can't disagree with you on that. I think there should be some more public parking. But again, I'm probably the wrong person to ask about this because I don't think you should be allowed to have 15 people crowded in a house. I talked to some folks at Grayton one time and they were complaining about the traffic in Grayton, parking in Grayton. I said, well, you rented your house and there's 7 cars in your house. So you got to have some personal responsibilities too. You complain about everybody else while you yourself don't do anything about it because you're cashing that check. Balance. All this stuff is balance. If you're going to rent a house, you should have parking for them. So if you look at the house, there's a couple on 30A. We'll call them monster houses for lack of a better way of putting it. Mm-hmm. They don't have the parking. The house that can hold 30 people doesn't have enough parking.
They don't have 30 parking spots.
Yeah, come on, that's ludicrous. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't have any say. It's just not in our purview. Yeah, I'm just telling you something I don't like.
And when and if you see a deputy or a posse member issue a parking citation, it's probably for something pretty egregious.
Yeah. Well, and again, we still have a responsibility to, particularly if they're on the roadway or on the bike path or, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. David Brick Crow. What a great name, by the way. David Crow. I love that name. Sheriff, you're doing a great job. Tell Deputy Mose, Toole, Paul, and Wells to keep up the great work. Amen. We love to hear that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Rich Allison says, Sheriff, nice job on the promotions and fire rescue. We did promote some people. Yeah, we actually promoted them yesterday.
Yesterday. They officially announced it today. And so they'll have their formal ceremony in a couple of weeks. That's good stuff,
Yeah. Super cool. Big things coming on the fire rescue side of the house.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Joe Burton, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this private beach nonsense. What a mess.
Yeah, that's
what
great.
An understatement.
Listen, we'll
a mess. Yes,
retweet,
it is a real mess.
It's a real mess. And people are passionate. There's a lot of passion. Mm-hmm. And again, we're going to have to do the best we can with it.
Yeah. Terry Pilch has another question. What agency would be able to change the laws regarding LSVs so that a vehicle has to have a top speed of 20 or 25 miles an hour is not allowed on the road where the speed limit is 35? This could alleviate some of the 30A traffic issues. And he's right. And if you talk to Chief Rowell, that's one of the biggest problems down there is people who revert their golf carts into low speed vehicles and they can't reach that top speed.
So they have to be able to maintain that. They have to be able to reach 20 miles an hour, but it's almost impossible for us to know that, right?
Yeah.
So as long as it gets in, so the county is putting in turnout lanes. So hopefully golf carts will get over.
But again, it's not against the law.
Yeah, but
to not do that.
Yeah, I know it's not against the law not to do that. But I'm kind of like the same people that drive on 98. If I can't get you to use enough good sense to know that you shouldn't be driving on 98, I'm not sure that some of them are going to do that. But that's here and there. Every little thing that'll make it better, I'm about. To his point that he was just talking about, they have to be able to go 20 miles an hour. That's the minimum they have to be. But here's the trick: it doesn't mean they have to drive 20 miles an hour. It means they have to be able to, which is the rub, right? It doesn't say you will go at least 20 miles an hour. It says that you have to be able to reach that speed. And so the question becomes, how do you know, right? And to me, some of these things are getting an obstruction of traffic. I think that's the aggravation for a lot of people. There's just too many of them. Listen, the county can set the parameters on county roads. They have the purview of deciding what and how they want to do that. You're just going to see more and more. I wish there was a lane specific for golf carts, and I'm using that term separate than low-speed vehicles because, again, a low-speed vehicle currently has a legal right to be on the roadway.
It's a vehicle.
But, the same thing on 30A. There was several cyclists, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're all on 30A riding, and nobody's on the bike path. Listen, the 10 cars backed up behind them are hot. They're mad. And they're all honking. Why are we? You need to. And we get the calls. Make them get on the bike path. I can't make them get on the bike path because they actually have a legal right to be there. So we got a roadway that's not designed for the amount of traffic it has. That now we've introduced different obstacles in the roadway or difficult obstacles to flow of traffic. So we just need to kind of decide as a county. The BCC is going to have to decide how they want traffic to flow on 30A. And the truth is, they're going to have to make a decision. And guess what? Half the people are going to be mad. Some people are going to love it. Some people aren't going to love it. But they got to make decisions. They got to be forward thinking and take into account what's best interest long term. And that's what we're hoping that they're working toward.
Yeah.
And they just did a mobility plan. We were not really involved in the mobility plan, which is where I may be wrong about this. Somebody else may know more about it. Where they are, deciding transportation issues and how people get around for the next 20 years. Hopefully, this is something that they addressed, and maybe one of our listeners will know that. But that's really what I'm waiting to see is how is that going to be affected in the future?
Yeah. And Terry, to answer your question, the law regarding LSVs, like the state, like FDOT says this is a low speed vehicle and this what it must have. There are laws regarding that. A county really has the ability to decide, are we going to allow this on county roads?
They set the speed, what roads are going to be allowed that are under county purview.
It's twofold to answer your question. Who's able to change the law or who's in control of it? That's a twofold question. It's the county and the state.
Sure it is. The problem is if you have 14 vehicles on 14 golf carts on low speed, I need to use my words correctly. Golf carts illegal to be on 30A. Low speed vehicle is not. Mm-hmm. So you got 14 of them in a row. Yeah, people are not going to be happy. And by the way, we can't charge them for not going less than 20 because we don't charge any other when traffic's impeded. So that's really the issue is if they're going slow, impeding traffic, and there's no ability for them to speed up. So that's really where we're going to have to start saying, look, you need to be pulling off the roadway.
And then you get into a conversation about who's responsible for signing off on these vehicles. They're supposed to go a certain miles per hour, but you don't have to, when you register your vehicle, you don't have to do a speed test.
Just to be clear, I think you can cite them for obstructing traffic.
Oh, 100%.
If nobody's in front of you, you can absolutely do that. But the issue really is you get so many on 30A and the traffic's so heavy,
Yeah.
Just 4 shots for espresso in this, by the way.
Yeah. Denise is asking, I'm sorry, but I have never, ever had to deal with anything like this. I have lived and visited many beach towns. Yes, totally agree. Kelly Keys Smith, I'm joining late. Did anyone ask about the deceased girl in front of Emerald Bay yet?
No, nobody has brought that up yet. That individual was identified. Family was notified.
Mm-hmm. And we released her name.
We released her name. And yes, that is no sign of foul play involved in that. That investigation, we believe, is a natural death, as much as it can be natural when you're, not that old. But there were other factors involved.
Yes, and talk a little bit about you spoke earlier about people. There's games of telephone that happen, and when people are upset or they see something or whatever, it ends up being something that turns into something that it's not. Right. Sure. We've been in that area. We're aware that there's sort of a transient population that frequents there. We're addressing that.
As much as we can. So what we're doing with the transient or the homelessness population, I think one of the things that we talked about in the sheriff's office last week was that we need to try and get some kind of understanding of to what extent is there a homeless population in Walton County. Now there are people that are residentially challenged. And what I mean by that is rent is so high here, the cost of living is so high that they're jumping from couch to couch to couch. We're not going to call those people homeless. What I'm talking about, those people who are actually camping or living in the woods. And so over starting the first of as soon as the beach season kind of slows down, we're going to try to identify and census, if you will, all of the people that are homeless. Where are they at? Where are the encampments at? What's going on, so that we know who we're dealing with and have some sense of what this problem looks like. We don't even want to start proffering solutions to the problem until we understand the scope of the problem.
Yeah.
And listen, we have homeless folks out behind Defuniak Springs. You know, the shooting that occurred, that individual was homeless, living behind Walmart. We're seeing more and more homeless people there. We got a call about some folks being homeless up around Paxton. So we need to really understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so we think that'll take probably 2 or 3 months to get that census done, if you will.
Yeah. Mary Posa, I was soon after the tow and sheriff on 98 with an LSV you speak of right now. So yeah, we totally get it. They're on 98. It happens a lot, and we pretty much tow them 98% of the time, unless by some miracle that they can get off of the road immediately and safely.
Yeah, we typically tow them anyway.
Yeah. Joe Burton, how have hurricane evacuation plans evolved as the population has increased?
Yeah, so 2 things. The short version of that is, as we have improved some traffic mitigation, like 331 and the bridge and that 4-lane, that obviously helps some. But you got about 300,000 people down here on a July 4th weekend. You got a lot of people. And so the main thing that we try to do is to make sure that people heed the evacuation. And we've seen this multiple times with Michael. We had people out, local people, quite honestly, to be very honest, they wanted to ride around and look and said it's their constitutional right to ride around and look. Well, sort of, but not always, right? There's limitations to that. Because if you're particularly in South Walton, you are bridged in on all 3 sides, right? You've got to get across those bridges. Those bridges close at about 45 miles per sustained wind speed. And I have to make a decision when to close that bridges. Once I close that bridges, you're not going over the bridge. Sorry, we're not going to let you go over the bridge. So the main thing is, go back to her central point, really one of the biggest things is going to be about the education to get people out. I go all the way back to Hurricane Opal in 1995, 96, where the people went to bed thinking one thing, and in the middle of the night, some things changed, and they were stuck here, and it did some serious damage. But that was 2 orders of magnitude less than Hurricane Michael or Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Camille, if you're old enough to remember that. People got to help themselves. As far as the recovery and the plan, yeah, we're prepared for that. That part of it, we're prepared to come in and manage that part. We have a plan to do that. But it's the getting people out that scares me. The getting people out terrifies me. And quite frankly, everybody's been allowed to build up on the dunes for the last, 30 or 40 years. This whole discussion of private beach is going to be completely moot the first time. God forbid, I hope it never happens. But you trust me when I tell you, everybody will decide they want renourishment when that happens.
Yeah.
Because it's going to look
How do you feel
different.
like 4-laning the bridge will help with evacuations?
Oh, it's going to help significantly, but because what we do is what's called contraflow. We'll actually turn the bridges all one direction, so there'll be no southbound traffic. Mm-hmm. It'll be only northbound traffic, but you got to take advantage of it. So everybody waits to the end. And we have people say, well, listen, I paid $10,000 to come here for a week. I'm not leaving until now. I want to leave. And we said, well, sorry, you can't cross the bridge. Why can't I cross the bridge?
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Joe.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of names stormed out there. You're in the height of hurricane season now.
I think there's 3 in the Gulf right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there not? Mm-hmm. Kenny Monroe.
My family's not staying. So just to be clear, I live south of the bay. If this thing comes, they will go north of the bay.
Yeah.
For sure they will.
Kenny Monroe, can you make the bike riders on 30A ride on the bike path and not in the road? I think we just answered that.
Yeah, Florida law won't allow us to do that. They have a right to ride on the roadway.
Heather Schultz, are you going to make that secondary firearms video? It seems out-of-state people think they can carry here without a permit.
They can.
They can.
Yeah, they can carry here without a permit.
They can't carry open carry.
Yes.
Without a permit.
So we're on that video. We are ready to go.
Our
podcast.
Different than a video, yes.
Yeah.
But we just tweaked the intro this morning. I think we're like ready to go.
When are we going to release? Do we know?
As soon as I can get it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the things.
So the short version is Corey is promising to have this done in a relatively short period of time. Yeah, it's actually already been filmed, ready to go.
We've recorded it already. Yeah.
We're about ready to do another one too here before long.
Yeah, we've in the queue before we even launch the podcast, we've already done one on immigration. We've done constitutional carry, permitless carry. Mm-hmm. And then we're about to record another one
on the beaches.
As soon as we know what's happening.
I can't do it because I don't know what the rules are going to be yet.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But to answer your question, Heather, people can carry here without a permit. They just can't open carry. They have to conceal it. Denise, I keep hearing things about being approved by the commissioners. How is it they have absolute control to make these decisions? I'm not sure which topic she's talking about.
You hit us back with a little more information.
Marie says, by the way, several days ago while going west on 98, a code enforcement pickup turned around and went over the median ground to go back eastward. While whoever it was near the turn at 30A West and 98 by the Exxon station. Who is watching the code enforcement people that, from my experience, rarely do anything in their county vehicles? Is that department hiring? It's like a slide job. Yeah. So basically, saying that who's watching code enforcement?
They work for the BCC. They work for the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah. Denise. Yeah, and we're talking about private property. Okay. Yeah,
so read the question again. Hit it up again.
It wasn't a question. I think there's just a lot of frustration over on both sides.
Nobody's more frustrated than I am, trust me.
Yes. It's frustrating. Shannon Scroggin says, love the Walton County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Denise is asking how many $500 fines have actually been issued for double red flags. We'd have to look that up. Yeah, I
actually don't know it off the top of my head, but
we had a couple of weeks where we had a lot of drownings.
Yeah.
And I know we issued several and code enforcement issued several in just that 2 week span. Yeah, but Denise, if you would email me, pio@waltonso.org, I can get that exact number. But keep in mind, we're not the only organization that issues those. Code enforcement, code compliance rather, they issue them too. So you would have to ask the BCC for their numbers and our numbers. They
actually have more people down on the beach than we do right now. So.
Correct, yeah.
Doing that.
Ryan Fredericks. Ooh, Ryan's putting our business in the street before we have a chance to tell people. Are you putting a boat at Baytown Marina?
Well, since you mentioned it,
since you let the cat out of the bag, Ryan.
Our marine asset it's really difficult for us to get out of the Choctawhatchee Bay. It's that's an hour drive or our boat ride all the way around, and we can launch off Grayton, but we're really dependent on the water conditions.
Right.
And so we've had a lot of situations where we wanted to get out into the Gulf, but the Gulf was too rough to launch off of Grayton. So we were able to secure a grant that allowed us to put a boat launch over in Sandestin that will significantly cut our time off, over in Destin, that will significantly cut our time off getting up and down the beach in Walton County. So yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
That's good stuff.
He started seeing the movement over there. I was like, what's going on?
We're trying to get there. And we're doing that in the Bay too, by the way, because the same principles in the Bay. We need to be able to launch quickly. Yeah. So we've got one around Choctaw Beach that we're getting worked out, trying to get that solved so that we can get out of there faster.
Yeah. A question from YouTube. Twin Gang says, "Why can't we see questions?" You are on YouTube, and most of the questions that we get are actually on Facebook and Twitter. So,
come on with YouTube.
But yeah, if you have questions, just let us know. The questions that you're seeing are only on YouTube, and if you switched over to the Facebook page, you could see the questions being asked. Just kind of a couple repeat questions. I'm going to go over those. Stan Nikolov. What do you think about the tow rotation response times when a traffic crash occurs?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask because, quite frankly, dispatch is the best example.
They're the most knowledgeable.
They're the most knowledgeable. I'm the least knowledgeable of that.
About response times.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to speak to this because I don't drive a tow truck, but I can tell you that when there is a crash and you are driving a vehicle that is not an emergency vehicle, getting to that crash is very difficult.
Yes, it's very
and it's dangerous for those guys. And if there's no like good way to get to it, it's going to take a while because they've got to sit in the same traffic you do.
I mean, again, the ones I've had, towed recently, El Sancari do a great job there in Freeport. I mean, those guys are right on it. Henson's down there always does a good job in it. I mean, I think everybody, I can't say that anybody does a bad job for that at all. I just don't know what the response times are.
Yeah. And the tow rotation is in place just to be fair across the board.
Yeah.
Justin Goodman, the bike path is in a horrible state of disrepair, and people don't look coming out of 30A driveways. Boy, do we know it. Yeah. Memory Dean Spence. Hi, Memory.
Cool.
It was such an honor to hear your tribute to Officer Deputy TJ Brooks. His energy, smile, and love will be missed, but never forgotten.
He's a great person.
Kelly Smith. Okay, I asked her question. So we're just catching up, guys. So yes, we just talked about the woman found in Emerald Bay. Sorry, we're making our way through these questions. Todd Rourke, why would the sheriff not be part of a mobility plan that he or she is responsible for enforcing?
Nobody wants to hear your logical questions. Nobody wants to hear logical questions.
Logic does not apply here.
Logic does not apply here. Well, because I think the short version of that is, I think when I ain't got a good answer for that. I don't know. I was going to.
Well, it's a lot like. Look, it's a lot like the.
A lot of it has to. All joking aside, a lot of it has to because they're going to spend. This is millions of dollars right over the course of the next 20+ years, and they have some competing interests that may not be. So I look at everything first from the public safety standpoint of, and maybe that's for the best because you might not like my suggestions. My suggestion might be to cut down a tree that somebody. I love trees, but I love people more. So, maybe that's some of it. We certainly want to have more input. We would like to have more input when we go forward. It's kind of like parking, in those kind of things. But that's their purview. We'll stand by and provide any thought process, any whatever they want to hear. They're willing to hear it. We're willing to say it. Doesn't mean we're right, but we might have some take on this. So.
Man, what a great question.
It's a great question.
And it's kind of, it's very similar to like when, FDOT doesn't ask our opinion when they're doing road work or like any of that.
They don't ask the highway patrol whether they think this is a good time to do it.
That's not a jab at them. It's
it's just the truth. They different branches of government and they are, have their take on how it needs to work. And quite frankly, they have other interests than I have. So maybe that's.
Okay. Kelly Smith said, thank you for answering our question. Denise, has it ever been considered to have LSV lanes? I don't know that they have the room. Where would you build them?
I don't know. So I actually think that's a great idea. I wish they could do it. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I just don't know that you've got room down there.
The other thing too, one of the things you see with because I know the gentleman that talked about parking earlier, one thing you got to understand, a lot of people are claiming as their property what is actually public right of way, right? So you planted a yard. I can show you some in Highlands where people are, they've grown their yard and it's my yard. It's not really your yard. It's actually the county easement right of way. This is why I'm not on the board of county commissioners, because the first thing I would do is reclaim all the public property. Absolutely, I would stop you from having a yard in public property. I would just say, no, this is the county's right of way. I would reclaim that property first. Sorry if that makes somebody mad, but I would reclaim that property first and make it available for parking before I did some of this other stuff.
Word. You heard it here first. He has spoken.
That's why they don't let me do that. Which was probably a great reason for me not to do it. Because you're going to be some hot people.
Yeah.
It's been my yard since 1952. Well, it hadn't been yours. So.
Yeah. Josh Bennett. Sergeant Bennett. Can we get our deputies backpack AC units? Asking for a friend. Man,
Come on, Flash, slow down.
I did see Deputy Jamie Reagan the other day. He was working Operation Bluebird, and he doesn't have one of those nifty. Apparently, there's like something that you can pretty much glue to your AC vent in your car, and you it's a tube, and it like goes in your vest.
It looks like a vacuum tube.
Yeah, it looks like a vacuum tube. He doesn't have one of those, so my next move is to get one for him. But we'll look for those portable backpack AC units, Josh. I might be able to get you like a fan that squirts water at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one of those. Tina Odom says, I was under the impression that DOT closes bridges during a storm. So does the SO do it now?
We can both do it. Just a matter of what the
sense of urgency is. Who's there?
Who's there?
Like,
yeah. So there used to be a wind gauge. Hopefully it's repaired. But listen, we've sent deputies to the top of that bridge with a wind gauge before. It's not a science. Whoever needs to get it done will get it done.
Yeah. Justin Hamilton, does the sheriff's office have the same issues with poor Verizon phone service in Freeport and South Walton? If so, have you reached out to Verizon about this issue?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. So we actually yes. The short version. We actually,
and it's not just Verizon.
Yeah, it's not Verizon. We use phones called a FirstNet phone, which is a public safety network. It's better, but there is some kind of magical something going on in Freeport. That
you like
right there at 20 and 331, nothing works.
And it just, even the Publix parking lot.
It makes no sense.
Don't try to text, call.
Yeah, fastest growing city in the state
send
of Florida.
A pigeon.
Yeah. We need to talk to get to the mayor. Let's get some folks over there and get that straightened up.
Yeah.
By the way, downtown Defuniak has the same problem. If you don't know this, downtown Defuniak, the internet there at Bruce and 331 or downtown is just beyond sketchy.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
It's the strangest thing ever.
By the way, that's why we're putting a new radio system, about $40 million worth, at the sheriff's office. That's one of the reasons we can't go directly to cellular, but we have to use what's called LMR, land mobile radio, and
because the signal's so bad.
The signal's so bad, and that's not just here. Truthfully, that's everywhere. Walton County, interesting enough, is one of the first counties in the country is getting this broadband initiative, so that they are putting broadband throughout the county, which is going to have a huge impact when that thing's done.
Yeah.
Really, for moving people in here and doing business.
So, Justin, to answer your question, we are with you.
The short version is yes, we feel your pain.
It is astronomical. Ryan Fredericks, I'm sure it's been discussed. Do we have a date for the town hall regarding the beach yet?
Yeah, we're still looking about probably the second week in September. I've got to get the rest of the information from the county. We have to know what their final status is, and as soon as we do that, we're going to be able to consolidate our plans, and then we'll go out to the public.
Ryan has another great question after outing us about our boat. What's for dinner? Man. And tell him you got a food truck in your neighborhood tonight.
I heard the food truck's cruising around. But
a Thai food truck. I'm in.
Yeah.
Thai food it is.
Yeah.
Kenny Monroe says, so you're saying that bike riders on 30A have a right to obstruct traffic and create dangerous situations?
That might be like adding some words to my mouth. What I said actually was that, yes, they are legally entitled to be on the roadway. And I'm being somewhat, I get it, it's frustrating. I was on 30A Saturday morning, Saturday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. No one on the roadway, no one on the bike path. And, 3 bicycles, they're on 30A. And so you can't make them get off. They're entitled to be on the roadway.
It's a state law.
It's a law.
Now they have a responsibility too.
Right, but what happens is if the oncoming traffic the other way is enough to keep you from passing or getting around,
correct,
you can't pass. So.
And they have to follow the lay of the land too.
Yeah,
so they've got to stop at stop signs. They've got to stop it.
But think about the way you just phrase that. So you're telling me it's okay for them to do this, this, and this. Not exactly what I said, but the short version of that is that just shows the frustration that the public has. And that, pretty from a sheriff's office standpoint, I know you're not saying this, the gentleman just said the question, but so all of a sudden that becomes the sheriff's office isn't doing their job because I don't like this. We don't like it either. It's aggravating, super aggravating, especially when nobody's on the bike path. I get it when, maybe if you're running, I've talked to serious cyclists who say, well, I'm going, 20 miles an hour or whatever, and I don't want to hit somebody. And I get that, but I'm like, the car's going 30 miles an hour and you don't want it to hit you either.
Yeah. Sherry Butler, golf cart horns honking all hours of the night on scenic golf. Unreal. It just never stops. How do we deter that?
Yeah. It's really hard to get people to show some common courtesy and decency these days. It's aggravating.
Great. Mary Posa, I've seen great things with sheriff's deputies and have taken photos and wanted to post on your page on Facebook. There's no accessibility to do so. What's the best way to send some appreciations when we have them? I take photos when I see them helping people in the community. So glad you asked that. So this question is twofold. On our Facebook page, you cannot comment with pictures, and we do that on purpose.
Because you don't know what we'd get.
Because it's a public page, and I cannot, per public records law, hide things just because I don't like them. So we don't allow photos to be posted, and that's not to deter you. Obviously, we want to hear your feedback, whether it's good or bad, by the way. So you can email me, pio@waltonso.org. We have a spot on the website where you can give us feedback. You could get on our Instagram. Not that I want to be bombarded on Instagram Messenger because, I already don't have a life and I look at them all hours of the night. But you can send pictures on our Instagram Messenger. And I do get some of those. I actually got one about Leah Snaith the other day, helping out a little boy when his mom was hit on his first day of school. And Leah was there to help calm him down and give him a toy and all that. So we love to see them. But yeah, email is probably best, or jumping on our Instagram. You can send us pictures on Twitter too, which is now X. But any one of those. But we just don't allow messages or photos on Facebook. I just get inundated. TK Bradley, in my neighborhood Blue Gulf Resort, the STRS claim the county property as parking. It blocks my view. I don't know what STRS is. Do you?
I don't know what that is.
The STRS claim the county property as parking.
Yeah, you have to give me a little more information on that. I don't know the.
Yes, Todd Rourke agrees with you. Reclaim all county property immediately. Victoria Lee, yes, the 30A mobility plan included a slow lane vehicle. It was not supported by the BCC.
Oh, that's a great idea. I mean, again, that's, and I said, we weren't involved. I think a deputy went to one meeting, two meetings, one time. They didn't actually come to, I know I wasn't invited. So,
yeah.
But that's a great example. They have to make decisions about what they think is best for the county, and that's what they're elected to do. And listen, that's a tough job. It's a tough job. I love picking on my friends at the BCC, but the amount of abuse that they take is pretty epic. And a lot of times it's people are really upset, and again, they don't know all the facts. But they know they don't like what they see. So, but sometimes there's a lot more to it. A lot of times there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. Larry Mitchell, is there a law on squatted trucks? It seems to me that it's extremely dangerous. If there's not one, I wish there was. Carolina squat, where their trucks are like this.
So there's a law about how high the bumper can be off the ground. So that's probably where get some of that. So
I don't know how they can see.
Yeah,
I literally don't know how you can see. So, yes.
The short version is maybe. It has to do with bumper heights.
Yeah.
It has to do with bumper heights.
Barbara wants to, unless there are no parking signs, it is my understanding the sheriff cannot ticket and therefore people park in the right of way. Correct. 30A is a state and national byway. Parking in the right of way on 30A, in my opinion, is not part of scenic highway, and no parking signs every 8 to 12 feet. Very frustrating that we must have signs, according to a judge.
Yeah, so that's the way the county ordinance is written. I think I'm trying to say this as delicately as I can. I think the ordinance should be written better. I think the opposite should be true, which is no parking in a county right of way unless it's signed for you to do that, right? But to do that, you have to provide parking for people. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can't shut down all the right-of-way parking and then at the same time have no place for people to park. They got to find some balance to this. I don't think anybody wants to see signs every, whatever it is, 100 feet about no parking. But she's correct. We cannot ticket, tow, any of that if it's not properly signed. And only the county administrator determines what is no parking. So that the sheriff's office has no say in that. It's the county administrator. And to be clear, the exception to that is if they're on the roadway. So if their tire is on the apron of the road, then yes, we can absolutely do that.
I hope that more or less answers your question, Barbara. Julie Lewis says, are you guys actively searching for Mother Nature? She's out of control with this offensive heat.
Boy, she needs to get herself, tuck her crazy in because it is hot.
So hot.
Hot.
Miserable. Trying to skip over some of just the comments and ask questions.
Okay.
Charlie Comer. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, man.
Any advice you can give me for the Law Enforcement Academy? I start mine super soon.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Good for you, young man.
That is so cool. Would love to know where you're going, Charlie.
You know what, though?
Which academy?
I got one for you. Ask questions.
Be
Ask
curious.
a lot of questions. Be curious. Always be curious.
Like Ted Lasso says.
Yeah, be curious. And I mean that. I'm really serious about that. Always ask.
Okay. I found out what STR
Okay. I thought that was like a Bitcoin thing that went on.
Short-term rentals. That's what it means. I didn't realize that's what it meant. So I got to go back to the question. Stand by. Got to find it. So I think she's saying that the short-term rentals claim it's theirs, so people can't park there. Let me see if I can find it.
Listen, you don't even have to look at it. Here's the short version of it. Either they own it or they don't. Mm-hmm. And if they don't own it, then the county can do something with it and say restrict it. So,
okay. Yeah. Ask your question again, Marie, because otherwise it's gonna be Hot Mess Express. Me going through these trying to find it. Yeah. Larry Mitchell says, I bet when one of those Carolina squatter trucks runs up the back of a car and hurts someone, it will be a lot. I've seen it happen. I mean, I've seen it happen where it's ran into the back of somebody.
It's a bumper. I mean, again, I know the bumper height is the issue on the front. There's a limit to how high they run, but I don't think it contemplates them lower into the back because when they wrote the statute, they probably never thought of that.
Yeah, because
who would have thought of that foolishness?
Yeah. Charlie says he's going to Gulf Coast State College, the law enforcement academy there. Yeah, that's awesome.
The director there is a great guy. He's a retired Memphis police officer. He's done really been in the university system. So he's a great guy running that program over there.
Great. And Sheriff, I know that this is going to shock you. It's 6:45 and we're caught up on questions. I think. There's a couple other things we want to talk about. Cones, Cops, and Cruisers is this Saturday.
So a couple of our deputies, particularly Andy Carnahan, is putting together a kind of a community event, and Deputy Hatsty and really a lot of people are coming, bringing their vehicles. I know their car club, and it's just a community event that Deputy Carnahan on her own put together. She's not us doing it. She went out there and made this happen, and I think that's fabulous. Got some ice cream, some cool cars, and some of our folks out there. So we're hoping that people join us Saturday. You want to give the specifics of the time, please?
Yep, 10 to 2 at South Walton Sports Complex, which is right behind Dune Lakes Elementary School. And she just wants to give the community an opportunity to meet deputies who work in District 4. Because that's her district. She wants people to come out and feel like they're a part of the law enforcement community here, and that we are a part of your community, and just get people shaking hands and meeting each other. And there's going to be food trucks there and vendors and all the things. And Deputy Hat is bringing some really cool cars, so we're looking forward to it. And that's from 10 to 2 on Saturday at the South Walton Sports Complex right behind Dune Lakes Elementary School.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah, and then is there anything else that you want to talk about?
There's so much. We've I want to go back to our fire rescue side for just a second. Our air ambulance has been active. Unfortunately, maybe it's good and bad, but the fact we have it is great. And just let the people know that as we're moving forward this next year, one of the things we're looking at trying to do is adding another ambulance, potentially a critical care ambulance in the Defeniac Springs area. So we know a lot. We get asked about that a lot. We think that's important. So I've budgeted to try and make that happen.
School started. Big.
These kids are excited.
Your kid is excited.
Yeah, no, she's
so much so that she doesn't answer you.
She doesn't answer me. She asked for money to me to send her money, but she doesn't answer me. My other one loves me. She's out there, whatever. So when I'm about to get written out of the wheel if she doesn't answer me. Anyway, so the kids are excited. It's great stuff to be back. We ask you to slow down for these school zones. It's super important, and nobody wants to make that kind of mistake, right?
Yeah.
By the time we come back next in a month. Couple of weeks, and say a month. So it's really, we may not even do it then because we're going to be right at our town hall meeting.
Yeah, and that might serve as it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. And we'll have limited seating here at the sheriff's office because we just don't have that big of a facility here. But we will be live just like this, and we'll try and take your questions. And we're trying to firm all this stuff up and get ready for the people. And there was a reason that the court gave us 90 days. People. Then we had people literally come the next day saying, "I want somebody, whatever, whatever side you're on." We had people showing up with their deeds saying what they want and demanded that we take action tomorrow. I got one of them trying to sue me now for not throwing people off the beach already. I mean, that's you got those kind of people out there, so you need to understand. We're just trying to be reasonable. Be reasonable about the way we do our business. Yeah. So, and I think a town hall meeting is appropriate in this, and we'll see what we can do. Work out together. We're all in this boat together.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Yeah. See you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time.